Okay, so I am now in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm staying with my friend Tabitha, and I have learned a lot since I have been here. We were talking about um, tattoos, and Spirit was talking to me about my tattoos a while back. They were telling me that this is basically like my life history. I think I said that in one of my other videos, and I was looking at her tattoos because she has a lot of tattoos too. And it makes me think like it's a lot about the movie Memento, where you have all of these understandings, like for whatever reason that you wrote these things down, you literally brand yourself with something so important and a stepping stone. And whether if it was like really casual, like you were just like, oh yeah, just put it, this is what I want, let's just put it here. Or it was like, I want this and I want it right here. Like whether it's totally secure in that, or you're just like, having a shared experience with somebody. Because a lot of the tattoos that I got were with other friends in other places. So I was really honing in on it because her profession, or what she's going to school for, is to learn about the muscles and how they work together. So she wants to be a nurse, and she was showing me pictures last night about like the muscles and the different names, and she was wondering why they had so many names for one muscle. And that made me think of, we have a lot of different names for a lot of different things in history, and even though the names might change, the meaning still remains. So what that made me think about, because I had never really thought about the muscle in that respect. Because yes, I have, a tattoo here, and yes, it's a certain color. Yes, I have a certain memory and a certain description, reason why I got it, date, time, period. I can remember the people that were there, stuff like that. But there's also something beyond that. There's also the skin, right? Like there's no wonder why there's no wonder why there's 7 layers of the skin, 7 chakras. There's reasons why these things are like, we can call it skin, chakras, we can call it whatever we want, but the meaning still remains. They're layers of some sort, right? But then beyond the skin you have muscles. And these muscles, they connect to other parts of your body. You can relate that to earth, you can relate that to chakras, you can relate that to vibrations and colors, because every organ has a different color and a different size and a different location, and they all do certain things for a certain reason. We can call them by any name, but it's like that phrase about rose, like a rose can go by any other name, but it's still going to smell really sweet because it's, you know what I mean? It's still the same meaning behind it. So I was thinking about the muscles and all of that, and I thought I would share that with you because if anybody else out there has some muscles and has some muscles, has some tattoos, and they don't have to be just tattoos that you get like this. They can be scars. I mean, those are all brands that happened in some moment in your life that may or may not have been super important. So it's really cool to like check back with your own body and why you chose that moment and why that moment happened, or for the colors, everything else, because then you figure out something more about yourself and about why that happened. It's almost like your own Akashic record is there to tell you that you learned something really big that day, and perhaps, just perhaps, maybe you missed something or you forgot about it. Because it's all about remembering, that's like the whole difference, I think, between being born in another time period and then like having to recreate it all over again. It's because you're born without this memory. Actually, maybe you are born with all that memory, but I think that it's another thing I picked up here was that I think perhaps the reason why we feel like we are born without memory is because we are born we're born inside of a womb, you know what I mean? We're in this water environment. And we're in there for, however long, it doesn't matter, because we know that time only exists in your memory, in your state of being, because, different lifetimes, like insects, their lifelines are a little different, and like animals, their lifelines a little different, and we're a little different, and like tortoises, they live for like, what, 300-400 years, something like that. So I don't know if size matters or anything like that, but I definitely see a correlation with like different timelines, and about Einstein's theory of relativity, where like when you're at the same line of eyesight, you now are existing in that moment together, whether or not, I mean, because you're going the same speed or you're just standing still, it doesn't really matter. You are now in that same timeline. You're now at the same speed of light. So I think one of the greatest fears that we tend to have, and why perhaps our memory isn't so great, is because we are in this water solution for so long. We're attached to our mother. We're getting everything that we need from our mothers, right? And then we come out, and now we're like breathing, and we're like a fish out of water. We don't understand the environment. That's got to be, I mean, when you really think about it, that has got to be one of the craziest moments ever to experience that. And then you now cut the cord, so now you're like, how am I going to eat? Where am I going to get my nutrients? What's going on here? I don't understand. Like, and then you're like above the ground, so now you're like caught, right? Or you're handed out. I mean, either way you look at it, that has got to be one of the most incredibly confusing experiences ever. And it's like, I know that a lot of people have a lot of frustration with children, or you know, it's all in how you look at it. It's like either could be looked at as frustrating, or it could be looked at as like exalting, because you're literally watching this being wonder why this world is totally different, because they were in such a different world. You know, they had their eyes closed. They're in their mind pockets. You know, they're in where we sleep all the time. That's where they are. They're experiencing that other realm. And that's like the difference between night and day, is that what we experience in our dreams and then daytime, that's like we're literally being born every single day or something like that. And that's a little scary to think of at first, but then you realize how empowering that is, because now you have the ability to literally change everything just by waking up. Like, we keep thinking that we have to wake up, that we need to wake up to reality. And it's like, you know, that's every single day. Every single day we can wake up and do and be and decide and do whatever it is that our hearts really want and whatever it is we really want to do. So I think it's really important that when we get frustrated with, you know, if a baby cries, you don't know what they want, oh, they're so upset, or, you know, it's like, imagine being born into another world and being totally confused, knowing that the line of communication, maybe they communicate telepathically, because I know that's the way that spirit communicates with me, is telepathically. And it's like trying to get used to words out of your mouth or words effervescinating from your brain, from your brain waves, the frequencies of all the colors. It's like, I can see why that would be so frustrating, because they're having this disconnect. Like, why can't you understand me? I am clearly communicating. And you're like, I don't know what you want, because I need you to communicate like I do. I think it's a really powerful tidbit of information to realize that they really did come from a totally different world, a totally different environment of just one single thing, and just having like little things come in, you know, and it sounds a little muffled, and they're calm, and then the vibrations are totally different because they're in water. It's like sonar. So it's like, I mean, it's like taking a look at that and saying, okay, I understand now that they're totally different. They're totally different environments, and I think that's the reason why we tend to maybe forget things, because now we have to relearn everything in a different environment. And I think I know that intuitively, but I never really thought about it until, you know, until Tabitha, because she has a child, and I was simply just watching her, and I realized that the child is doing like everything that I'm doing right now. I'm like talking telepathically with a spirit, other dimensional realm beings, and I'm literally just walking around my environment and I'm checking it out. Which brings me to another thing. She was cleaning out the baby room in there, and I came across a couple of toys, right? And I'm like super excited about it, because this explains a lot of things that I would like to explain, but I didn't have the right tools to do it. So they keep talking to me about planetary alignments. You know what? Let me just grab something real quick. Okay. So okay, so I was okay, I just grabbed something else here. So I was thinking about, because they keep talking about like planetary alignments and like how I'm literally like bringing alignments into tune. You know, I'm bringing alignments together and stuff. And by realizing these great truths and sharing them and exploring my environment, because the outside environment is like the inside environment. It's about rediscovering all of these things that we have forgotten over time. And I think about, they're like, okay, well, we want you to imagine what it would look like to have these alignments all together. Like, how could we possibly bring that together? And I always had this picture in my mind about it being like this, right? And then it's like, I imagine it being like big, you know what I mean? And then it's like, you've got, here, I'll just use this. It's a little toy right here. It made me think of like the planets. I just like the circular motion. I like that it's all there so it can all be seen, all be revealed. So we'll look at it from a topographical point of view. This is what I actually see in my brain. So I thought it was really cool that this tool was here at just the right time. I think of it as being, all right, so you've got like this landmass here, right? It can look however you want it. This is just a tool here. But I think of this as being a landmass, okay? You got a landmass in the center. Kind of like what makes me think of, like, well, I guess technically we're all land masses, but I always think of like Australia. I think of Antarctica. I think of Arctic. I think of like those places, you know, like Antarctica. What is it about that place, you know? Not too many people go there. I'm not even sure if you can actually fly there without like secret security pass or whatever. And I think the North Pole is the same way. So those things always make me wonder because they look very similar to places like Australia. So I always think of it as being one landmass, like how they talk about Pangea. So I think it'd be really cool because then that will make it like easier for everybody. That way we don't need passports. We don't need anything. We have it all at our fingertips and we can just be together and it's not like all crazy confusing. You got to take planes, you got to do all this other stuff. It's just like so much stuff that you got to go through just to like visit somebody, because I always think about how upsetting it is that you have to like go through all these motions just to have an experience. So I always think, well, what would make it easier? Come up with a solution. So okay, getting back to it, you got Pangea, right? And then you got like, you know, it could just be like this. And then I thought, well, what is it about planetary alignments? Like, why are they so far away? I know it's perception, but what else? Like, what could it be? If I really wanted it to happen, I gotta imagine it, right? Because it might be total truth in there. So I'm like, okay, it would be really cool. And immediately I envision like they were all circulated around, because in that way we can just turn around and check it out. So that's why this also stood out. And I thought, okay, so you get the landmass here and then water, right? I always envision the water being like on the outside, because then everyone has a beach. Everyone has a beach that's totally accessible. And I think that would be really awesome, because then nobody has to decide whether they want, you know, trees or whatever. We can have all of it all together and be able to experience it and not be like, well, I don't have a beach. I have to move here now to have a beach. And I don't have this. Well, I want to live somewhere in the mountains or in the, well, maybe the mountains are actually in the middle and maybe the trees are surrounding that. And then maybe it's like, you know, maybe it actually goes like that. And it's like that way we can all experience it whenever we want. And maybe there's like a pathway to go through the mountain. Maybe it's like a grand junction so we can all visit each other. And it doesn't have to be one thing or the other. That's like the beauty of imagination, is wondering, okay, if we can literally create our own reality, what do we want it to look like? And I'm not saying my idea is everyone's idea. What I'm saying is that I want to share it because I think it's really cool to think about. So I imagine that, like, what if the planets, right? Because I talked about in the other videos about holographic, you know, they talk about holographic universe, and I'm like, well, what if they are? You never really know. So you don't have to fear having like these gigantic planets being uh, um, like condensed material, like actual, you know, condensed material. What if those beings could be here and their planets could come into our vibration, right? And they could just like plop down, like, you got all the planets in our solar system, right? And maybe some more sprinkled in there. I'm not really sure. And I mean, maybe they go out forever. So maybe it's like really, really big, because there are a lot of people. So I envisioned okay, so I've been thinking a lot about effervescent water, like water that has like any color you want. And it's like you can literally just like try that color and experience that frequency, because that's kind of what I feel like I'm doing without seeing it. I mean, I can see it, but like even when I don't, I literally experience a new energy every single place I go. And that's why I feel like there's a reason why I have so many friends in so many places, literally around the US, because I totally feel a different energy, a different experience, a different mixing, a different breathing. If with every single state line, like literally, I will cross the line. Like when I went into New Mexico, as soon as I hit the line of New Mexico, a friend in New Mexico texted me. I was like, what? It was like literally whatever my frequency had that meshed with New Mexico, it like sent it out and I got it back like immediately. Immediately. I think that's kind of amazing. So so what I picture is you've got water on the, it's funny, there's actually, you can see that there's actually water in there. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so it would be really awesome, I think, because all these plants are different colors. They're really cool looking. What if it was just like this hologram, like this holographic frequency? You could just like, it was light enough to where you could just experience it, and it would turn the color of the ocean in that particular area that color. You know what I mean? So then that way, you can have mountains, you can have the tropical, you can have, uh, maybe the desert is just really a beach and it's missing water or something. So now you get like all this beach, you experience all of it, and then it's like you got all these different systems that would go around, and you could literally just visit each geolocation like what I'm doing, but you'd be able to see it and feel it, and it would be so magical to have something like that. Sometimes I think that is how it is. It's more of like experiencing and accepting it, and thinking of how it can look, so that other beings, like the ones that I'm communicating with, they feel a lot like ET energies, as well as like the very basic foundations that started life here. And it's like the meshing of the two together, like how can we make this happen? And it's about imagining it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I feel things so strongly, and why frequencies are so intense for me, because I feel like I'm experiencing all of these planetary systems, all of these different beings that exist on these different planets, and it's like I have to take in their atmosphere, because there are times where it has been like so intense. I felt like I was literally breathing in water. Literally breathing in water. And that also makes me think of like the whole birthing situation, where it's like, that's another environment that exists. But it's like they tell me I'm like a mediator. It's like I'm a mediator of the environment here, because this is where I exist. I exist here in the physical. And then they said, when you figure out what feels comfortable and what doesn't feel comfortable, because we can tell by the way your frequency and body and facial expressions react, that this is something that we need to adjust on our level, so that we can make the conduit and the coming together, so that it can even out and it won't freak people out, because they don't want to freak people out. They want to be able, it's like they want to experience us and we want to experience them. People that have passed on, all your past lives, all the extraterrestrial beings out there, like all of these things are like to a are like to, they talk to me and tell me, okay, what are the problems? We want to know what the problems are, so we can figure out the solutions. And they said that's the reason why you can see the dualities, you can see the different sides of things, because you're able to pick out what is the best solution out of that. And it is a process. I'm not saying that I immediately find it right away. I'm still in that process, but the imaginative things that I can think of excite me, because I realize that that is so cool. I mean, there's something really cool about that. Colors and frequencies, and being able to have it all, and being able to have everyone there, and all the things that we want to experience, like extraterrestrial beings, and share different information, and communicate with them in different ways. And they're learning just as much as we're learning, and they just want to know how they can make this possible and make it acceptable and easier so that the energies may mesh together and it won't freak people out, because they don't want to scare us. It's not, nothing is meant to scare us. Everything that happens, it's like everything that happens in this world, we can choose to look at it in a negative way, or we can realize that things probably happen and decisions are made the way that they are because they're just doing the best that they can, and they're going off of how we react. And you know, it's like let me talk about Ebola for a minute. I know I said I'd save it for its own video, but I'm just going to talk about that one thing right now, because talking about one kind of meshes the other together. Ebola. Now, I know that everything is energy. I know that everything is a frequency, a certain frequency. So when I think of like colds, flus, viruses, Ebola, that's a real big one right now, so we'll talk about that. Now, when I think of that, I think of frequency, and when something doesn't mesh with your body, when a frequency is too much for your body, that's when things happen that's overwhelming, and your body has a tough time reacting to that and understanding how to take it in, because it might be just too much of that frequency. So when I think of Ebola, I think of either whoever was living there, you know, whoever contracts that, wherever it starts is like, it's just a different frequency that was there. You know, it's a frequency that was there, and it didn't mesh with the body very well. You know, it just didn't, whatever the frequency was, it was a little too much, and it just didn't mesh very well. You know, and it's, we can look at it as super negative, but we also got to realize that the frequencies are changing. We know that the world is changing. We know that the environment's changing, the weather, you know, the other hemisphere. It's like things are really happening over there in different places. And we got to remember that things are changing. We are making a lot of different changes, and we need to stay positive about it, because we have to realize that it happens for a reason. There's a reason for the frequency change, because the other extraterrestrial beings, they are at a much higher frequency, and we are at a certain frequency. And so by realizing these things, we now take a little bit and then break it up, you know, just like molecules in the human body cell. It takes in a compound element, and then it kind of takes it and takes it and takes it until it becomes something very simple, so that the nucleus may take it in and use that energy in the most efficient way possible. So it's the same thing with these frequencies, is that we want more, we want truth, we want. Yes, that's okay, but we also have to realize that things are going to change because of that want, because of that need. So it's like when you see something happen that seems extreme, try to look at it in a frequency way, because then that can help you look at the positivity of it. Because I know it looks the way that it looks, and it looks negative or scary or sad, but you have to remember that if you want things to change, things are going to change. So, you know, it's a very humbling moment to realize that, to know that if you want something to be built, some things have to come down. And it's not negative, it simply is the way that it is. I mean, we had Pangea at one point, and something happened, right? And then it made things more difficult, because now we're like, you know, there's wars, and there's confusion, and there's like, you know, planes, and then, you know, there's stuff, the trains derail, and things happen. And if we want those things to change, we have to realize that coming together and knowing that things are changing that way because we want that back. And if we want that back, then we have to be accepting of these changes regardless of what they look like. We have to stay positive. We have to stay positive, because it is creating what we want. It just happens at whatever speed that we're willing to accept. And, you know, people are really tuning into the spirit. They're really becoming super conduits to accept these frequencies, you know, by listening to your body, by listening to spirit, by doing what your heart wants, by learning how to calm down when something happens. It's like, okay, now you're accepting that frequency. Now you're accepting a little bit more of that frequency. So if you're in a place of havoc, try to look at it in a frequency way and realize you are there for a reason. And now you know about it, and now you can like help other people calm down, because we all just want to come together. So if you're in a safe place where things aren't happening, know that whatever frequency you're at is probably the frequency that we're trying to get to. And now you have a leg up because now you understand something. So it's all about helping each other take in these new frequencies at whatever rate that we can digest properly and not freak our system out, because it's about meshing the spirit with the physical, and the physical needs to vibrate with the spirit in a very comfortable medium, okay? In a very comfortable medium pattern. Okay, I think that's all I have to share for now. Thank you for watching.